Live event started, thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to our March Cabinet meeting. We'll start with item 1 on the agenda, which is apologies for absence. And Anne, I believe we've got apologies from Councillor Giles today.
Yes, Leader, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 2 then. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay, great. Item 3 then, they're the minutes of our last meeting. You can find these on pages 3 to 22 of your packs, colleagues. And hopefully you will have had an opportunity to go through these. Are members content that they're a true record of our previous meeting?
Yes, so moved, Leader.
Thank you very much. We move then to the first substantive item on our agenda today, which is item number 4, the pay and reward policy. And you can find this on pages 23 to 50. To 52 of the packs that you've got in front of you. Now, as you know, colleagues, the Council's pay and reward policy for the workforce is an annual report that requires adoption by Council. This policy sets out the internal mechanisms for remunerating Council officers and provides any changes since the last adoption. The policy was last approved in November 2020, and as such, there are no proposed changes to it this year. However, I would like to highlight the annual gender pay gap that will also be published on the Council's website. I'm pleased to report that the mean pay gap has decreased for a second year to 1.92% from last year's reported 3.6%. I reported in November that the 2019 median gap had closed entirely as the analysis of the data showed that the median point of hourly pay was the same for both men and women. There is a very slight change to this, and there is a median pay gap of 0.57% for 2020. Our gender pay gap continues to compare favourably with other councils across Wales and the UK average of 17%, but we maintain efforts to eliminate the pay gap between men and women employed by the Council. This Council is committed to conducting equal pay audits on a 3-yearly basis, and we will carry out this audit once we've established the gender pay gap for 2021. So colleagues, that's an overview of the report. I'd just like to invite the Cabinet Member for Community and Resources to comment on this report.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Leader. Yes, I agree with what you say, especially on the gender pay gap. We're making some really good progress with that, and of course with the real living wage, which is part of our policy and much needed. There's not much since last November to change on. This is an update of the current situation. But while I was rereading the report, it occurred to me that I was at a WLGA meeting where someone had mentioned that the austerity programme by the Tories since 2012 has cut $15 billion from local councils. Now, I know Ray could jump in and tell me exactly what we've lost here as well. This has had a horrific effect, I think, on us. I've always considered council wages and terms and conditions to be the standard for others to meet. And it's clear that we have been attacked mercilessly to try to break this down, and we are doing everything we can, not just to solve the gender pay gap, but to actually maintain pay and conditions for our members here against increasing difficulties. So that's all I'd like to say to that. Thank you, Leader, for your support of this.
Thank you, Councillor Mayer. Councillor Rahman, would you like to come in there?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment. I want to commend the cabinet member and colleagues and officers as well on the reducing the pay gap. It's certainly headed in the right direction. I know in the report as well that the council is Newport Council is one of the smallest has the smallest gender pay gaps from amongst local authorities in Wales, and compares favourably to the national average of 17%, which is absolutely amazing considering the size of our workforce as one of the largest employers in Newport. So hopefully we're setting a good trend there for other businesses, whether in the public or private sector, to follow us as we're taking the lead on reducing that pay gap further. But as Councillor Mayor rightly put it there, about the real living wage, we need a real momentum by the UK government to introduce a real living wage now for all our residents, not just in Newport, obviously across the country, because times are really hard. We've seen what happened with pandemic, people losing their job, but the fact that we as a council are a responsible employer should be commended. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Rahman. Would any of the colleagues like to comment on that report? Okay, well, the recommendation then is for the Cabinet to agree to recommend the updated pay and reward policy to full council for approval in order to meet the statutory requirements for a pay policy statement to be published on an annual basis. Are members content to support that?
Yes, happy for that, Leader. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for that. Now we move now to our next item on the agenda, which is item number 5, the Welsh Government White Paper and Consultation on Rebalancing Care and Support. And I'm sure members have had plenty of time to look at this and consider this and go through this really important document. So the Welsh Government has published a white paper on rebalancing care and support and is currently consulting on proposals to introduce new legislation to improve social care arrangements and strengthen partnership working in order to achieve the vision set out in the Social Services and Wellbeing Act 2014. Now, as a member of the Gwent Regional Partnership Board, it's important for the Council to contribute towards the consultation that will assist in shaping and developing the future partnership arrangements across health and social care. The delivery of social care services has been making significant progress in the last 10 years, transforming the delivery of social care through the Social Services and Wellbeing Act 2014 and the Regulation and Inspection of Social Care Wales Act 2016. Both of these acts are aligned and shaped by the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, which strives towards a wellbeing goal, a healthier Wales, and having a health and social care system that works for everyone. There are 4 specific proposals set out in the paper for consultation. These are the development of a national commissioning framework which will standardise commissioning processes for care services, including the method for determining the fees paid to care providers in the independent and voluntary sector. The second proposal is to establish a National Care Commissioning Office, either within Welsh Government or through setting up a small arm's length body. The third is to introduce a Chief Social Care and Social Work Officer located within Welsh Government to function as the national professional voice for social care and social workers. And the fourth proposal is to establish regional partnership boards as corporate legal entities and enhance their functions to enable RPBs to directly employ staff, ensure transparent accountability in relation to pooled budgets and joint commissioning by local authorities and health boards, and to hold integrated budgets, undertake direct commissioning of health and social care with agreement from local partners, establish a planning and performance monitoring framework within each RPB, and to be required to report to Welsh ministers on progress of joint delivery against their integrated priorities. The consultation set out by the Deputy Minister for Health and Social Care Services seeks our views on the proposals to introduce the new legislation to improve social care arrangements and strengthen partnership working. The deadline for submission for this is the 6th of April 2021, and there are 12 questions in the consultation document. I'm sure you've all had an opportunity to look at this, colleagues. This is in Appendix 1. So we need then to consider the Newport City Council proposed response to the consultation document. Of course, I should emphasise at this point, colleagues, that this is a consultation response, and there may be some considerable change at the national level following responses from all parties and stakeholders. It is, however, important that we consider this in detail and we have some robust discussion around it. So before I go any further, I'd just like to invite Chris Humphreys. Chris, would you like to add anything to this before Cabinet members start to discuss it?
Thank you, Leader. I think this paper is quite a significant step forward in indicating the direction of travel to deliver the ambitions in the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. And I think the thread that runs through it is greater integration across health and social care. So I think some of the discussions I've had with colleagues in Welsh Government around this, including this morning, is that that certainly very much remains the direction of travel. I think it's important to understand that, but I think it's also important to understand how that kind of shapes the future relationships between the local authorities and the Regional Partnership Board, and also with Welsh Government itself. So it represents a significant step in that direction. Welsh Government described it on discussions this morning as very much wanting to hear people's views, and certainly I know that's the view of the Deputy Minister who met with the directors in Gwent last week. So I think it is important that we contribute, but also understand what it means for because, as we know, social services is one of the biggest, second biggest budget area for local authorities. So it's not an insignificant impact should this proposal go forward. But as I say, it's very much important that we kind of feed in the views. And as you say, Leader, there will be views coming from the WLGA. There'll be views coming from directors via ADSS as well. So this is going to be the kind of the Newport view. And yeah, so I'm not sure if anybody's got any further questions for me. I'm happy to answer them if they have.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris, for providing that overview. That's really very helpful there indeed. And you highlight a very important point within that. As we move towards regional partnership working, we do have to understand the implications for ourselves as an individual local authority, both in terms of the financial implications, but also the governance arrangements as well. And I think the governance arrangements are particularly important when it comes to accountability for the services that are delivered to our residents. Councillor Cochrane, as the Cabinet member, would you like to come in there?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I think you've summed it up extremely well, and I saw Chris had it as well. A couple of points I'd like to add. When we all met as the Social Services Policy Group, we met the Minister when she first mooted this idea. I felt quite excited because in some respects what it did do was going to give us a sort of a framework where we weren't going to go up with a begging bowl every year for funding. I thought it was all going to be set up with a funding a pot there, and we were going to move mountains basically. I was a bit disappointed when the actual white paper came out because there was no mention of funding in it, which worried me, because I thought, where the funding is it going to come from? Because it's great to have integrated work in, but the only one that's got more money than us seems to be health, and I just don't know where that money would have come from. So I was really concerned about that. So I had mixed thoughts then when I started reading it through, and I thought, well, does this mean pooled funding, and how much would we have to put a contribution to it? I've been in meetings today with the regional partnership board chairs. I don't think they're very happy about it, to be perfectly honest. And I think we were doing quite well as a regional partnership board. You know, there was a lot of a new way of working. We did a lot of work, certainly with children's services, Home First. All these were good things. I think the worry I suppose some people have is that if funding did dry up, where there's the sustainability is going to be, and I think that was a concern. The other concern I have really is that this is a massive paper, and the pressure is clearly going to be on Welsh Government, because England have already put this white paper through. Northern Ireland have done it. Scotland have done it, and I think the pressure has possibly been in the Welsh Government that we should be doing the same. And really, I think if you look at the background, you can understand on the report about the population change. You know, up by 53%. By 2040, people are going to be reaching the age of 75. That's a massive increase. There, you know, I think there's a 57% people with dementia. You know, these are massive areas that we're going to have to tackle. So I think I can understand why it's coming from, but is this the process that we want to go through? And the biggest one I worry about, if I was honest, is that where do social services fit in all this? Because it could almost be the Regional Partnership Board running social services. And I think, well, what contribution are we going to be making? The other thing I have, which I think is something that to be applauded, everyone might not agree with this, is having a chief officer for social services in Welsh Government, because at the moment, years ago when I was on the council, Graham Williams was the chief officer in Welsh Government, just dealing with social services. When Andrew Goodall went down there, they seem to have lost that position, and you had Andrew Goodall was the chief officer, director for health. There was no mention of social services, and then suddenly it was added on to Andrew Goodall. So I think to have a separate officer down there on social service, it might not be a bad thing. So I'm not poo-pooing all what's in that report, because there are some good things, and I think the integration needs to be being pushed forward. My only concern is certainly the funding aspect of it, and I wonder where we are going to be operating from a social services. Are we just going to be an executive body just rubber stamping things at the RPB? And I think RPB boards are working well at the moment. Needs to be more integration, but is this the answer? I don't know. And I think the more I'm listening to different groups throughout Wales, I don't think it's just going to be an easy passage through. And I think for us to make a decision by April the 6th, it's such a big white policy of or white paper. Can we do it justice by April the 6th? Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cochrane, for raising those important points with us. Councillor Truman.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. What is clear coming across to me is, this is a consultation, so there's the opportunity for us to put the concerns we have in there, and I'm sure that'll be the same with all the other authorities. But Paul is our cabinet member of social services, and he's in the front line with it, as you say, and it's right that we raise those concerns. But as I say, there's a lot of points that need clarification, particularly how the national framework would work That's a biggie, I think, looking at it. And again, this is a consultation, and we've got to put all those concerns and aspects in, because one thing we can never be accused of in local government of not working in partnership with other councils. We've done that for years and years, and I move with the times. Change is change. It's got to be for the better. I hope this will be. I don't know, I haven't got a crystal ball, but we will work with what we've got, as we always do. But as I say, there are concerns, and there's a lot of clarification needed on this. And I say it's crucial that we put those concerns in the consultation document. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Truman, and that is so important, isn't it, in terms of our response, that we do share and make sure that we share our views with Welsh Government. I was really pleased when I was looking at the responses to the questions that we've been able to develop, is that we are very clear that it would be unrealistic to expect that any change would be cost neutral. And I think that's really important and something for us to emphasise to Welsh Government. And again, as Councillor Cochrane said, the current RPB is actually performing very effectively. I should add, under the wise chairmanship of Councillor Cochrane, but it's functioning perfectly well. So there are some potential issues, I think, around governance in terms of this proposal. But our priority should always be service delivery for our residents, and if there's an opportunity to improve service delivery for our service users, then absolutely fine. But we do need to be mindful of the potential unintended consequences of this proposed legislation, and within that context, I think it's really important that we return to Welsh Government this detailed response to the consultation that we've developed. So if there's no further comments on the report itself, can I ask you members, are you content to agree the proposed consultation response to Welsh Government in order for that to be returned to them prior to the deadline of the 6th of April?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, colleagues, and thank you for your contributions to the debate. We move then to the next item on our agenda today, which is our corporate risk register update. Bear with me, just get my paper up on the screen. And this is to provide an update of the Council's corporate risk register for the end of Q3. As members, we are being asked to consider the contents of the report and note the changes to the Council's corporate risks. The Council's risk management policy and corporate risk register enables this administration and officers to effectively identify, manage and monitor those risks which could prevent us from achieving our objectives in the corporate plan, and to undertake our statutory duties as a local authority. The Q3 risk report will also be presented to the Council's Audit Committee at the end of March to review the Council's risk management process and governance arrangements. So if I can just provide you with a brief update, colleagues, on the report itself, and then perhaps we can enter into any discussion on this. So in terms of the update, at the end of the Q3, the Council had 52 risks recorded across the Council's 8 service areas. These risks are risks that are deemed to pose the most significant risk in the delivery of the Council's corporate plan. At the end of Q3, 18 risks were recorded in the corporate risk register, 10 severe risks, 6 major risks and 2 moderate risks. One risk, the pressure on housing, was closed in Q3 as it was amalgamated with the pressure on homelessness risk. This was in response to the close links between both risk areas and the mitigating actions that the service area, including our partners, is taking to support people and families needing affordable and secure housing within the city. In Q3, the Corporate Risk Register has also seen 2 risk scores increase, 3 decrease, and 13 risks remain at the same score as in Q2. Now, there are some risks that I would highlight in there to you colleagues, and I'm sure that you would like to comment on this yourselves. So the risk score for the demand for additional learning needs and special education needs provision has increased. The property estate risk has also increased. The post-transition Brexit risk has decreased during this period, and the education out of county placements has decreased during this period. I'm pleased also to note that the school's finance cost pressures risk has decreased during this period as well. So colleagues, you've had an opportunity to go through the report and consider this in detail. Are now open for comments. Councillor Rahman.
Thank you, Leader. I obviously want to comment on the property estate risk as the cabinet member for assets. I just want to give some background, if I may, Leader. When I was appointed by yourself back in 2019, just before the pandemic, under my instructions, I asked officers to conduct a survey of our property estates, knowing, we have a lot of historical properties, aging properties. Unfortunately, we were then hit by the pandemic and the lockdown. However, during the period, the estates team have been proactive, even with staff shortages because of the pandemic and because of self-isolating. They have been able to conduct some surveys. In the time that they've conducted the surveys into the council's operational estates, such as schools, corporate buildings, etc., they have identified issues to some properties. And now I just want to reiterate that most of these properties are quite old and aging and do require work anyway. I would mention the leisure centre, city centre leisure centre. Obviously, we've discussed that at length in previous meetings. I would also highlight that obviously building regulations and health and safety rules have changed since a lot of these properties have been built, and our utmost responsibility is to the safety of our residents. And where we believe these buildings or properties are a risk to our residents, to our communities, we obviously have to find alternatives. Taking the leisure centre, for example, we put forward a proposal on replacing it with a modern 21st century building. So hopefully that would address that. So I just want to reassure the Cabinet as well as our communities that the risk is being mitigated and managed by utilising the existing capital maintenance programme of £1.5 million per annum. And we're also regularly meeting and having frequent monitoring meeting with the estates team. I am keeping on top of this, as every other single Cabinet member here today and yourself, Leader, we have met pretty much every other day throughout the whole pandemic, throughout the lockdown period. So I'm keeping on top of this. I'm keeping an eye on this. It isn't a surprise that the score has gone up for the property estate, but the fact that we're being proactive in identifying these risks and resolving them, that's the key point here. The team is also working with North and service areas such as education when it comes to schools, in identifying other sources of funding, also from Welsh Government, who have been helpful in helping us pay for these works. I would also highlight the fact that we've just recently passed the budget, and as you say, Leader, we've invested heavily in education, and that is where our priority lies. The future of our children, the future of our youngsters, and they are the future generation of this city, and it is important that we invest in their future, quite rightly so, by investing an additional £5 million into education, into schools. But we want to make sure that they have a safe environment to learn in, and that they have equipment fit for the 21st century, and that is the key priority for us. So I just want to highlight the point there about the risk to the property estates, but we are keeping on top of it, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Rahman, and thank you for the work that you've done on that. I do appreciate you providing us with the assurance on the mitigations that are in place to manage those risks. So thank you very much for that. Deputy Leader.
Yes, thank you, Leader. It's just a quick one from me, realistically, and the relatively new risk that's come on board regarding ash dieback. As the public of Newport have seen, we have had to address major issues along the Cullion Road area, and we continue and strive to look at other areas around the city where these trees that are diseased and affected will have to be removed, as these could cause harm to people and the health and safety issues and some property damage. But it's a risk that it's not only this city, although we have a high number of ash trees, but all of the authorities across Wales are suffering from this airborne disease. But it's a big risk and it's shot up quite drastically, but it's something that we do have to address. Thank you, Leader.
Absolutely, thank you very much for that. Councillor Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Leader. There's one on there that's probably always going to be on there. You know that as a result of COVID, I was like a dog with two tails, because my agenda for digitisation of the council is just gone on leaps and bounds. So I was happy with that, but with that has brought a huge amount of problems as well. We've had phishing attacks on the council. We've had problems with software trying to keep up with something. Sorry, I can hear something pinging in my right. But it's unfortunately it's something that goes with the territory, and I think that's going to be on there for a long time, because as quickly, almost like COVID, as soon as we find a vaccine for it, somebody finds another way around it. So I think that's always going to be red, and I think it's good that it's red, because it keeps us on our toes and makes sure that we also stay one step ahead of the people who are doing this sort of thing. So thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Mayor. Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, Leader. It's just a comment on the education portfolio. I'm really pleased to see that we've come out of red and we're into amber. Yes. It's been difficult to manage, but I say it every single time. I take my hat off to the school staff, our education head of service, Sarah, because this has been managed so well during the most unprecedented times. Families have knuckled down and got on with things, but more importantly, the students have, and that proves that, you know, we're getting where we need to be. And I just feel that hats off to them all. It's been absolutely brilliant the way they've worked how they have during this awful time. Thanks, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harvey. I couldn't agree more with you. Councillor Cochrane.
Yeah, it's touching on the three areas that obviously there are a risk in social services, and it's really touching on what we said before, and the pay and rewards as well, actually. If you look at the stability of social service providers, it is a risk. There is a big risk there, because we got to be honest about it. We don't pay, certainly the dom care providers, enough money. Some of them are on minimum wage, and I think Chris has mentioned on numerous occasions, within 3 months, 40% of people in dom care leave the profession. And I think this is where Welsh government, they keep saying about the making a more professional employment. They've got to start doing it fairly quickly, and you know, they've got to make these courses that are available now, that when people it's a profession, and they got to pay the right wages. And I know we're moving in the right direction in that, so I'm pretty sure on on that side of things, on dom care, we will be moving in the right direction, because they keep mentioning this, and I think at some stage we've got to hold them to account to say we've got to say that there's got to be the real living wage for people in dom care. And I think the other issue then, I think that I just like to bring up actually is about the pressure in social services for adult services. Well, we're all aware of that when we spoke in the last agenda item. You know, people are living longer, a lot more people are having dementia. People don't want to go, not everybody wants to go into a residential home, and I understand that, but some do. But if people are staying at home, care packages are not cheap. Sometimes people can be in 4 times a day. Some of them can be up to £1,000 a week, you know, if you've got 2 people manual handling. So there's a pressure on that, and I think people got to be aware of what the cost of that implication can be with all those care packages. And the last point I'd like to make, and I think you clearly will be aware of this because what we're doing, is on the pressure on delivery of children's services. We are doing something about that. You know, with the high cost of children outside of area, we're bringing them back in, and that's saving us a lot of money. But that's only the small part. The best thing is being better for the children. And you see an example of that of one of the homes that you visited only last week. So that is something we're trying to do on that. The other issue, though, is there will be a volume of referrals because of COVID, and there's no question about that. I think Sally gave me a figure last week where it was about 123. It's gone up to, was an average. Now it's up to 167 since COVID, about the pressure of referrals that's coming into children's services. And possibly that's understandable with people losing their jobs, pressure with children in a 1-bed flat, so to speak. And I just think we are going to see a pressure on that until everybody's vaccinated and we've moved over this horrible disease. Hopefully we might see a more equitable sort of figure on referrals that's coming in. Thank you, Leader.
Well, thank you, Councillor Cochrane, and you make some really important points there around the pressures on our services. And I'm really proud of the work that's going on in Newport and the fantastic officer teams that we have here in terms of modernising the services, you know, making our services fit for purpose for the 21st century. And as you say, the way that we've modernised our services for looked after children and the care and support that they will get is absolutely outstanding. And yes, there is a benefit in doing that. But I have to say, I was absolutely bowled over by the fantastic refurbishment of a property in order to create a home for these children. And that's exactly what it will be. It'll be a home in the way that everybody else understands what a home is. And I am so proud of the work that we are doing towards that. So thank you for highlighting those issues on the pressures. So unless we have any further comments then, colleagues, are you content to agree the contents of Q3 risk report and continue to monitor progress of the actions taken to reduce the impact of the risks in the report? Is everyone content with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes.
That's great. Thank you very much. We're moving then to item 7 on our agenda today, which is the COVID recovery update. You can find this on pages 175 to 188. Of your packs. So the Cabinet report is an update on the Council's and its partners' response to the COVID-19 crisis, supporting the city and both residents and businesses to comply with the current restrictions and progress against the Council's strategic recovery aims. Well, when you pause to reflect, it is quite immense, isn't it, to consider that it's been over a year now since Newport first received its first confirmed case of COVID-19, and over a year since we've seen the city in some form of COVID-19 restrictions. Now, for this Cabinet and Council over the last year, we faced many difficult decisions, seen many of our loved ones lose their lives, and some of our most vulnerable and disadvantaged impacted by the crisis. But we've also seen the best in people across Newport, going above and beyond to help others in times of crisis. And on many occasions, we, the council and our partners, have supported people and businesses across Newport. Now, colleagues, in our response and recovery, we endorsed 4 strategic recovery aims that ensure we can position ourselves to respond to the immediate and future needs of our communities and businesses. And if you recall, these aims were supporting education and employment, supporting the environment and the economy, supporting the health and well-being of citizens, and supporting citizens post-COVID-19. Now, in considering our progress to date, I'd like to begin by thanking most sincerely all of the citizens of Newport for their patience, their tolerance and their resilience during the period of lockdown that we've recently been through. This has been hard for everybody. There isn't one person in Newport that hasn't been affected by this lockdown, both in terms of the nature of it and the length of it. So I'd really like, on behalf of the City Council, I'd like to thank all of our citizens, because it's been a long, hard slog. But now, slowly and incrementally, we are starting to see the benefits of the efforts that everybody has made. So thank you, Newport. Thank you most sincerely for your efforts. Now, it's actually been over 11 weeks since Welsh Government put Wales into alert level 4 restrictions. In the last few months, it's been incredibly difficult for us, and I know that many people really do miss that contact with their family, their friends, and of course the impact on our children not being able to attend school regularly. And as we move into spring and the weather improves, we understand the frustration and the willingness of people to get back to normal ways of life. But please, everybody, you've been so patient so far. Please keep to the social distancing measures and comply with the Welsh Government guidance so that we can keep that case rate as low as possible and the NHS can recover. And I'd like to make a point on the case rate, because this week we've seen some positive signs in terms of the number of cases per 100,000 of the population, but also the positivity rate. And we've now managed to reduce those to the point which was previously the point where intervention was considered back in September. And I think that gives us a really powerful indication of the journey that we've been on with this dreadful, dreadful disease. So we are going in the right direction, but we do need to remain vigilant. On a more positive note, however, colleagues, the rollout of the vaccine has now seen 1 million people receive their first dose, and we're already into the over 40s being offered the vaccine. So tremendous achievement, and I know all elected members in the City Council were very pleased to have an update today from the Aneurin Bevan University Health Board and Public Health Wales on the vaccination programme. I think it's really important there for us to give our thanks to not just our health colleagues, but also our colleagues in Newport Live, who've really demonstrated the true value of partnership here, helping with that vaccine centre in the city centre. In terms of us as individuals, and as I look across the Cabinet, I know that many of my Cabinet colleagues have actually received their first, some have even received their second dose of the vaccine, and I keenly await the telephone call or the letter that will be calling me up. This is part of us being able to get back to normal life, and what we would say as a Cabinet and as a City Council is that we encourage all of our residents to take up the vaccine when it is offered to you, and to encourage your friends and family to do the same. This really is going to help us all get back to normal. Newport Council and its partners have also been supporting schools in seeing the return of foundation children back into school and the remaining primary school children returning back on the 15th of March. It's important that all parents and guardians help their schools by maintaining social distancing rules and to report as soon as possible any potential COVID cases. Now, our economy within this context has seen significant setbacks, and we know this. We all know this. And we've seen businesses close, we've seen residents losing their jobs or being furloughed. But to the residents of Newport, the City Council is here to support you, and we will work with our partners to support you to get back into work, to reskill and to train. And we're also committed to supporting our businesses to return as restrictions are eased, and we encourage everyone in Newport to support their local businesses when that does happen. And we're very hopeful of some positive announcements this week. So at that point, I think I'd just like to pause and ask if Cabinet members have got any reflections upon this particular report. So, Councillor Davis, would you like to comment?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I completely echo the key points that you've raised. It's been a tremendously difficult time for our residents in Newport, and light appears to be coming at the end of a long and dark tunnel, and life hopefully will start to improve. And I think we need to thank everybody for their hard work in adhering to the principles of isolation and working either from home or staying close to home. And it's amazing that as a consequence, not just because of the vaccines, our infection rate's gone down. But I wanted to focus very specifically in the, the leaders quite rightly pointed out that it's difficult for the economy. We're facing hard times. However, Newport City Council has been working hard to make a huge difference. My iPad's just gone off. And actually, if you look at the strategic recovery aims, there is a summary of council activities there since the 1st of March, and we've achieved quite a number of things. For example, the indoor market regeneration project has been commenced, and the CCR housing investment scheme has this work going on with the city with the housing investment. But what I wanted specifically to raise, because I think it's important that residents appreciate this, is that Newport has been successful, and it's purely down to the hard work of our officers. Newport City Council and Conway Council have been successful in a bid and been successfully selected by Welsh Government as a pilot for all local authorities for the local area energy plan project. And this is to help us to look at how we can reduce our carbon reduction. The local area energy plan for Newport will provide a roadmap on how the city is to become carbon neutral in line with the government's commitment to the UK being carbon neutral by 2050. The carbon reduction team will work closely with the project coordinator, and the Welsh Government has appointed Arup to do that. And they will share with us best practice on a proposed mechanism for Newport City Council to become carbon neutral by 2030. And I think that's something to be applauded. Despite the difficult time, positive things are actually happening. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Davis. And you're absolutely right there in what you highlight, as well as our response and our recovery actions. Officers are continuing to strive to be at the forefront of really future-proofing the city. And I think the carbon reduction agenda is going to be so important that we really need to progress with this. So I certainly thank you for the work that you've done on that. Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, Leader. I also want to put my thanks on record, because this has been the most surreal year of any of our lives. Never in my lifetime did I think we'd have to go through this. It's just been weird beyond belief. But as usual, Newport residents have stood up. They said, OK, fine, we'll do what you need us to do. And they've largely abided by the rules. And I really, really cannot thank them enough for that. As you know, Leader, we are now with Newport Transport running electric buses. So that was a tongue twister. Our Newport Council are a dementia-friendly council, a local authority. Newport Transport will be the first dementia-friendly bus company in Wales. I am absolutely beyond excited about this because it is fantastic. And it gives another step in the right direction, and that Newport Local Authority, in conjunction with partners, are still putting all the residents first. Whoever would have imagined a dementia-friendly bus? You know, it is phenomenal. I'm sure my colleague Paul Cochrane will have a lot more to say about it than I have. Thanks, Leader.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Harvey. Thank you for those warm words. And we do mention our partners and our stakeholders, don't we? And it's really important that we recognise the important work that Newport Transport do as one of our key partners across the city, and that is such positive news. So thank you very much for that. Councillor Truman.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. I concur with what you said yourself and my colleagues on the workmanship that's being done and the community spirit is being shown by people in Newport. Growing up in the 50s, I remember my mother, I used to ask questions, and sometimes too many. My mother used to sort of tell me off a bit, but I used to ask questions and I used to say, what was it like in the war, Mum? Because my father was away, you know, in Burma, but whatever, like many others. And she said, oh, it was a fantastic community spirit. Everybody worked together, pulled together. So they didn't know what the next day would be like. And for me, the citizens of Newport have done that over the last 12 months. They've done that because they've had to do it, same as everyone else. But they've gone beyond that and more. And there's loads of examples. We hear about it, we read about it, and we see it in action. And they have stepped up to the plate, the citizens of Newport, and they always do, because this pandemic came upon us and nobody had ever heard of it. No one had ever seen of it. Nobody knew able to work with it, to live with it. But we all did. We came together, and sadly, a lot of people lost their lives, which is very sad, as you say. But we're getting there. There's a light in the tunnel. The number of positive cases have come down and still coming down, and the rollout of the vaccinations is absolutely fantastic. And as I say, the more we can get vaccinated, the better. But that's people's choice, as it is. But I'd like to thank in particular the environmental health officers and the trade and standards officers, because they have been keeping us safe. They were out from day one. They were you know, giving advice, checking people were doing things with the new regulations, because it was very difficult for people to understand, all of us to understand, because they seem to be keep changing. But they've been out there doing that, and other officers in other departments. But I've got to say, the officers and the people in Newport deserve a pat on the back, because for me, as a young boy growing up in the 50s, they've shown the spirit that my mother told me was done in the Second World War. So a big thanks to the citizens of Newport and officers of the council.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Truman, and I'm really glad that you emphasise the role that our public protection colleagues have played in this so far. But I think it's important for the public to note that during this period, we've still needed our regulatory services officers, and they've taken this on really and gone above and beyond what is required of them. So it's been an outstanding move to be able to shift to the services that we've developed in terms of tracking and tracing and supporting people, the support for businesses in terms of reopening. It's been incredible. I can't emphasise it strongly enough, because I'm not sure that people always realise the amount of effort that has gone into this. So thank you very much for highlighting that, Councillor Truman. Councillor Rahman.
Thank you, Leader. I just want to sort of mention how far we've come as a local authority and also as a community, to be honest with you. As I mentioned earlier, we as a cabinet have met regularly throughout the pandemic, throughout the lockdown period, and that has shown in this report as well, that the fact that our recovery is looking to be great. I mean, there's light at the end of the tunnel finally, but the fact that the council have been able to continue with providing its services with its bin collections, litter picking, etc., has been absolutely amazing. So I just want to thank all those council staff that you know, went out there, risked their lives, but and also their family lives in helping our city. Also, the report mentions obviously the amount of work that the council has done and is going to do in the future, in the coming year, to be honest with you. And I just want to highlight one point within my ward. I mean, I literally live a minute's walk from the riverfront in Maindy, and I grew up here, and I remember when it was undeveloped, and I used to go blackberry picking with my mum along the river. Never before have I seen the riverfront so busy and full of life and activity. People are really taking advantage of our great infrastructure and of our active travel routes that we have around the city, the wetlands, as I say, the riverfront along 14 locks as well. So, you know, it's been great, and it's those areas that we're invested in as well, along with Newport Live, with their Happy and Healthy at Home campaign, and to keep you know, our residents motivated and keep their mental health on top as well. But I also want to mention as well the 143,259 people that have unfortunately passed away. That figure obviously is really important to me if you consider that the population of Newport is around 145,000, and that puts in perspective that many people have actually lost their lives. We're the third highest population in Wales, so pretty much a city worth of people have lost their lives because of this COVID pandemic. But on top of that as well, we're seeing you know, families greatly affected. I can honestly say that this council has acted swiftly and, more importantly, as proactively as possible to limit the impact of the pandemic to our communities. When it first happened, when the first lockdown happened, obviously BAME people were recognised as being one of the most vulnerable. It's because of the council's swift actions, along with working with key partners in Welsh Government and Public Health Wales, that we were able to limit the number of lives lost in Newport, but also help with the livelihoods of those people. We acted really quickly, faster than most other authorities, getting grant money out there. And I had residents contacting me from other authorities asking how come people in Newport, businesses in Newport were getting the money, but they weren't getting it in their areas. Well, that's because down to the leadership of you, leader, and this council and the officers as well, who worked throughout the pandemic to make sure that it wouldn't affect our residents and our community as much as it has elsewhere. So I'm thinking about those people that lost their lives. I think about those families that have been affected, but I want to give reassurances that and that's highlighted in this report, that we are thinking about the future and it is looking bright. But if you're offered the vaccine, take it up. If you haven't been offered the vaccine yet, please stay safe. Please stay at home. We are still within that lockdown period. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Rahman, and very, very sobering words there in your contribution. And I'd just like to pick up a point that you made there about the grants for businesses. And I think it's really important for us to emphasise this in terms of how quickly we were able to act. When we're looking to support businesses, this is not just about providing business rate relief for large businesses. We're supporting small businesses, startups, all those people that have put all their time, their effort, their savings into their businesses. We've tried really hard to support those individual businesses, those small businesses, to stay afloat during this period. And I really want to reinforce what you've said. the guidance and support is still there for these businesses, and if businesses need help and advice, they need to be signposted into the right direction for support. We are very much there for them. We've helped our large businesses, that is absolutely true. We've helped numerous businesses with business rate relief, but we are there for our small business owners too, and it's really important that people come to us for help, because we will try and help you and do everything that we can. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Cochrane.
Will you give me a little bit of indulgence on this and stop me if you want me to, if you want to? And it's just what Deb Harvey raised about, because obviously as COVID is going in the right direction now, more people with dementia and their carers are going to be coming out. And it's so great, and it's only just come through now that obviously that Newport Transport has been awarded this dementia friendly, with every driver will have a logo on his uniform to say he's dementia friendly. It'll be on the buses. That actually Newport Transport is going to be awarded in the National Dementia Conference. They're going to be having this award, and it's so important. And I've been banging on this for 2 years now about getting Newport Transport, because I think if you get Newport Transport, we can start putting the pressure on the taxis then to make sure they're dementia friendly as well. So as chairman of the dementia board, I'm so pleased about this, and I'm so pleased for Deb Harvey and the board members there and the officers that, you know, it might not be about COVID, but I do think that more people will be starting to come out and use the buses, because they haven't been using them, which is understandable. But when they start using the buses, they'll have some reassurance if they have got dementia or disabilities, that these people are being trained in the right and proper way. So thank you, Leader.
Well, thank you, Councillor Cochrane, for sharing that with us, and it is so pleasing to hear you say that, and I'm very proud of the contribution that our board members are making to Newport Transport. It really is very pleasing to see that. And I think this really reflects on a discussion that we've had, certainly in our council chamber, our virtual council chamber very recently, and that is the need for investment in public transport options across the region. So it's very good to know that as we get that continued investment, and I hope there will be more. I was delighted this morning to see the announcement that Sir Peter Hendy's review on the Union connectivity is reported, and the UK government are considering investing some money in considering proposals for investment in the South East Wales corridor, after we called for it, of course, at our last two councils. So that was very welcome news, and I'm sure that when those investments are made by UK government, that all of our partners will be there ready to facilitate excellent public transport for the citizens of Newport. And it is so good to hear that our very own Newport Transport will be at the forefront of this. So thank you for sharing that with us. It really is a very positive news item in terms of our proposed recovery. Deputy Leader.
Yes, thank you, Leader. And there's positive news in this report, and let's hope that there's some positive news on Friday when the announcement is made after the 3-week period. And I echo all my colleagues' comments in regards to thanks to all, and I do reiterate that, all members of staff in Newport City Council for keeping this city running through this pandemic. We've seen more people on the streets, as Madge has mentioned, with active travel. The vaccination news that we had this morning from the Aneurin Bevan University Health Board was very pleasing, but I just urge people to proceed with caution. You know, COVID is still there, and I certainly don't want to put any negative spin on what we're hoping to be positive news all round from here on in. But we need to err with caution. COVID is still with us. We need to still look at these social distancing measures and wash hands, etc., that the health boards are telling us. It is vital for us to be able to get this pandemic to the lowest possible level it's ever been. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Deputy Leader. Councillor Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. I'm sorry if I sound a bit like a worn record on this topic. I wasn't going to speak because I've made this point so many times during the past year, and that is the role that the hubs have had in this. They've just been absolutely wonderful from day one. They were out on the street delivering food when the supermarkets, the whole system, supply chain collapsed, and so I just want again to use this opportunity to thank them all for the marvelous work that they've done during the last year, and also that they will have matured enormously now as a service for the council, and they're already starting to look as to what they can do to enhance public provision in the future, you know, and God forbid that we have another pandemic, they will be ready and we will be able to cope. So a big thanks out to all the council staff, but especially the hubs. Thank you.
Absolutely, Councillor Mayor, and thank you very much for that. The hubs have been integral really to our response, so thank you for highlighting that. So colleagues, we've had an opportunity to discuss at length our COVID recovery plan and also discuss some of our ongoing responses. There is something that I would like to just address prior to concluding this item. And I'd like to talk to you briefly just about my role as leader. Now, as many of you have mentioned, and I know that Councillor Rahman has illustrated this with some examples, we've actually met, as you say, almost every other day during this period, and certainly for myself as leader and for Councillor Jevons as the deputy leader, this has been something that has been something that we've actually worked on on a daily basis throughout this period. And what I'd like to say in this public arena is that we're all human. Nobody is immune to the impacts of this dreadful disease. And many of us, like our citizens, have lost friends during this period. I don't think there's a family that hasn't been touched by this in one way or another. And for many of us, and particularly the families, what this has meant is that there hasn't been a proper opportunity to say goodbye. And we all know how important that is. I was contacted, and I've been contacted actually a number of times by different people to ask me to consider, as the leader, lighting up the Civic Centre yellow on the 23rd of March for the National Day of Reflection, in order for us all to reflect on our losses and experiences during this period. I have to say to you, I was absolutely not hesitant at all in agreeing to this request. It's right and proper that we take the time to reflect on our losses and our experiences as a city. And I just wanted to reinforce that, colleagues. I know I mentioned it briefly in council, but I just wanted to reinforce the point that all of our lives have been touched by this, and we all need to take that time to reflect. And I am very proud that as a city, we'll be able to make that contribution by lighting up our Civic Centre to do this. So in order to conclude this item then, I thank Councillor Rahman for emphasising the importance of people taking up the vaccine, and for all members highlighting the need for people to stay safe and adhere to the regulations as we go forward. And I'm sure in our next meeting we'll have another update on our COVID response. But for the purposes of this discussion here today, are members content to conclude discussions on that update report?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that, colleagues. We move on then to the next item on our agenda, which is an item that will continue to perplex and challenge us as we go forward, and that's our Brexit update report. And this is an update on the progress on the post-Brexit trade arrangements since the 31st of December 2020. Now, since the last Cabinet report, it's been 9 weeks since the UK officially left the EU and the single market. Under the new tariff-free trade agreement, businesses on both sides are now required to comply with the new custom arrangements. It's already been widely reported that some businesses have been struggling to meet these requirements, with reports of goods failing to be delivered and/or accepted due to paperwork, and an overall loss of income. Whilst it was anticipated that there would be short-term disruptions, in the medium to long term, it's important that ongoing support is provided to ensure that this becomes less burdensome on our businesses. The future of economic resilience of Newport and of South East Wales is vital to ensure that existing and new businesses can sustainably thrive. As the Council's administration, it's also important that we promote the Newport offer to homegrown entrepreneurs as well as global businesses. Having a diverse and sustainable economy that is able to provide sustainable growth will also enable Newport's communities not just to level up, but also provides opportunities for our communities to thrive in the long term for future generations. And I'd just like to share with you, colleagues, that on that particular topic, that last week I was able to attend 2 meetings with the UK government. So 2 meetings where the Secretary of State for Wales was present and discussed with other local authority leaders. So the first was with local authority leaders in Wales, and the second was local authority leaders from both England and Wales, to discuss with representatives of UK government the proposed funding regime that will be put in place in order to replace the EU funding that we benefited from previously. Now, what I can say about this, and of course it's very early days, isn't it? We need to fully understand and appreciate the terms and conditions of these particular funding streams. But what I can say is from the very outset, the UK government made a commitment to Wales not being a penny worse off from this process. I have to share with you, colleagues, that I'm not entirely confident that that will be the case as we look at the new funding streams that the UK government have announced going forward. So the UK government have introduced a community renewal fund, which will help us shape our bids into the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. There's also going to be an additional transport bid available for road authorities, and there will be a community interest fund available as well. It is quite regrettable, I think, that the UK government have excluded the Welsh government from these proposals, because we do have a strong tradition of co-production and collaboration here in Wales, so that in itself is quite regrettable. Nonetheless, as we move forward, I do hope that we're able to hold the UK government to account for that commitment, that Wales will not be a penny worse off. So it's really important within this context that we, as the Cabinet of Newport City Council, act as a voice for Newport within this context and work with our partners, the Cardiff Capital Region, our Public Service Board and the Western Gateway, to ensure that Newport's most disadvantaged communities and groups are able to access these opportunities to level up and enable Newport to recover from the pandemic. What makes Newport a great city to live, work and visit is our diverse communities and groups. We have and will always be a welcoming city for people from all nations, no matter their race, sexuality and religion. For EU citizens already living in Newport, please, it's so important that you, your family and friends apply for EU settled status before that cut-off date of the 30th of June. Newport Council and Welsh Government have all of the necessary information to help you with this. And Newport Council has been working with its partners to ensure that people are supported throughout the process. It remains a concern for us here at Newport Council that EU citizens are reporting issues relating to their rights, issues of hostility and access to public funds. As representatives of Newport's electoral wards, it's important that we support our communities, council officers and our partners raising any issues or concerns in relation to this. So in terms of our progress then and some of the actions that we've taken, our communication team continue to share Welsh Government information on the new trade arrangements, business requirements and information for EU citizens. This is being shared through social media, business newsletters and our own council's website. In the first 2 months of the new arrangement, Newport Council services have not reported any initial issues and/or concerns in the supply of goods and services. Our finance team have reported some increases in the cost of procurement, but overall supply has operated as normal. As part of the Council's financial prudence, contingencies have been made to manage Brexit and COVID impacts, and as the risk stabilises over time, this allocation will be prioritised. Our regulatory services have continued to offer support to businesses, and environmental health staff have completed the necessary training to complete health certificate checks. Our community cohesion officers continue to work with EU communities and offer valuable support for our vulnerable communities. Local groups and charities are also being offered the opportunity to access food poverty support that has been impacted by Brexit and COVID. And we've got quite a detailed table in Appendix 1 of our report, which does provide full details across the areas covered by the Brexit Task and Finish Group. But at that point, colleagues, I'll pause and invite comments from Cabinet colleagues. Would anybody like to comment on that? Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think that I think I might have gone on too long then about Brexit and expressed my views to. So, as I said, colleagues, this is a really comprehensive report. It's an excellent piece of work by officers, and it's very reassuring both for ourselves and our citizens to know that the Task and Finish Group are still working on all of the challenges that we face around this. So if there are no further comments, the members content to agree the report.
Absolutely.
Yes, fine. Yeah, no problem.
Yes, absolutely.
And agree that we're happy to continue to receive these further updates during this transition period. Yes?
Yes.
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 Great, thank you very much. And so the last item is item number 9 on our agenda, which is our Cabinet Work Programme. Are members happy to accept the work programme?
Yes, thank you, Leader.
Yes,
Yeah.
Leader.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. And so it just leaves it to me to draw this meeting to a close. I'd like to thank you all for your contributions here today, and thank you for the team that has supported us. You know, it's been, we reflected, didn't we, on this the year that we've been through, and we've certainly had an opportunity to discuss this today. But what I'd really like to do as I close this meeting is also give our thanks to the Democratic Services team. Yes. So thank you all for the efforts that you've made to help democracy to continue to function effectively here in the city of Newport. We really appreciate the efforts that you've made. So thank you all for that.
Thank you very much, Leader.
You're most welcome, Anne. And at this point then, I'll draw the meeting to a close. So thank you very much, everybody, and please stay safe and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Leader.
Bye.
Bye.